It was my birthday yesterday. 24 years. 24 years of feeling like an afterthought. And then my grandfather revealed a secret that turned my entire world upside down. I should have known something was wrong all along. Hi, I'm Alexandra, and it feels strange to even be sharing this, but my life took such a dramatic turn. I felt like I needed to tell someone. I would love to know where you're all listening from, so please leave a comment below and let me know. It helps to know I'm not alone in this. Growing up, it was always clear who the favorite was. My brother, Ethan. He was everything I wasn't. Carefree, effortlessly charming, and the constant recipient of my parents' unwavering attention. I, on the other hand, always felt like I was trying to catch up, scrambling for crumbs of affection.
My dad worked at a local hardware store, a job he seemed to resent with every fibre of his being. My mother stayed at home, ostensibly to care for us, but most of her energy was directed toward Ethan. He got the newest video games, the coolest clothes, and endless praise, regardless of his actual achievements. I got hand-me-downs, vague acknowledgements, and the constant pressure to be more like Ethan. It wasn't just my parents. My grandfather, Antonio, was a wealthy man who had made his fortune in real estate. He wasn't around much, living most of the year in Europe, but when he did visit, the pattern was the same. Lavish gifts for Ethan, polite nods for me. Ethan never had to worry about money. Antonio, bless his heart, funded his every whim. New car? Check. Extravagant vacations? Check.
I, meanwhile, worked part-time jobs throughout high school and college to pay for my own expenses. My parents always said they couldn't afford to help, even though I knew they were sending Ethan money regularly. I remember one Christmas, I had saved up enough to buy myself a used laptop for college. Ethan got a brand new gaming rig that cost more than my entire year's tuition. When I dared to express my disappointment, my mother scolded me for being ungrateful. Ethan needs it more, she said. You're so resourceful, you'll figure it out. And I always did. I worked hard, excelled in my studies, and managed to carve out a decent life for myself, despite the lack of support. Ethan coasted through, content to live off Antonio's generosity and my parents' blind adoration. Yesterday was my 24th birthday. I didn't expect much. A perfunctory happy birthday from my parents, maybe a generic gift card. Ethan would probably forget altogether. To my surprise, Antonio called. He hadn't been back to the States in over a year. Alexandra, cara, he boomed through the phone, his Italian accent still thick despite decades of living abroad. Happy birthday! I'm so sorry I can't be there in person, but I have a little something for you. Thank you, Grandpa, I said, trying to keep the surprise out of my voice. Usually, birthday wishes were the extent of his generosity towards me. I sent it last year, actually, he continued. A little late. I know, but I hope you're enjoying it. I frowned. Sent what? There was a pause. The car, the sports car. Didn't you get it? My heart stopped. A sports car? For me? No, Grandpa, I said slowly. I didn't get any car. The line went silent for a moment. I could almost feel Antonio's confusion and growing anger radiating through the phone. That's impossible, he said finally, his voice hardening. I had it delivered right to your parents' house. A blue convertible, a beautiful machine. I made sure it was in your name. My mind raced. A blue convertible? I had never seen a blue convertible. My parents certainly hadn't mentioned anything about a sports car. Grandpa, are you sure? I asked, my voice trembling slightly. Maybe there was a mistake? There's no mistake, Alexandra, he said firmly. I have the delivery confirmation right here. I even called your father to make sure you liked it. He said you were thrilled. That's when the first tendrils of suspicion began to snake their way into my consciousness. My father had said I was thrilled? My father, who barely acknowledged my existence unless I was doing something for him.
Something was very, very wrong. Antonio, sensing my distress, changed the subject slightly. Never mind the car for now, car. I have another small gift for you. I'm transferring $10,000 into your account. Use it wisely. $10,000. It was more money than I had ever had at one time. Grandpa, I can't possibly accept that, I stammered, but he cut me off. Nonsense, he said. You deserve it. I've been sending your parents money for you every year since you were born, Alexandra. I wanted to make sure you had a good education, a comfortable life. Use this 10,000 to make something of yourself. The air left my lungs. He had been sending money for me for years, and I hadn't seen a single penny of it. Grandpa, I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. What? What do you mean? He explained that he had been depositing money into a special account for me since the day I was born. He had entrusted my parents to manage it, to use it for my education, my future. He had assumed, foolishly, that they would do the right thing. But they hadn't. They had lied. They had stolen from me. They had deprived me of what was rightfully mine. The rage that surged through me was unlike anything I had ever experienced. Years of feeling overlooked, undervalued, and unloved coalesced into a burning inferno of fury. "I'll handle this, Alexandra," Antonio said, his voice laced with steel. "Don't worry. I'll make sure they pay for what they've done." The phone call ended, leaving me shaking and breathless. I needed answers. I needed to know the truth. I drove to my parents' house, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white.
I marched up to the front door and rang the bell, my heart pounding in my chest. My mother answered, her face etched with a familiar look of annoyance. "Alexandra? What do you want?" "I want to know about the car," I said, my voice trembling but firm. "The blue convertible. The one Grandpa Antonio sent me last year." Her eyes widened slightly, a flicker of guilt flashing across her face. "Oh, that," she said, her voice suddenly higher pitched. "That was a mistake. It wasn't for you, dear. It was for Ethan." "For Ethan?" I repeated, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "Even though it was in my name? Even though Grandpa Antonio specifically said it was for me?" she stammered, trying to come up with an explanation, but I cut her off. "And what about the money?" I demanded. "The money Grandpa Antonio has been sending for me every year? Where is it? What did you do with it?"
My father appeared behind her, his face a mask of anger. "Don't talk to your mother like that," he growled. "I want the truth," I said, my voice rising. "Did you sell the car? Did you steal my money?" They hesitated, their eyes darting back and forth, trying to avoid my gaze. Finally, my mother cracked. "We needed it," she wailed. "Ethan needed it." "He had expenses, Alexandra. You know how expensive life is these days. So you sold my car," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "And you spent my money?" "My money. That was supposed to be for my future?" They admitted it, their voices filled with excuses and justifications. They had sold the car for $16,000, they said, and used the money to pay off some of Ethan's debts and to take a family vacation. As for the money Antonio had been sending for years, they had used it to supplement their income, to make ends meet. They claimed they had always intended to pay me back, but the opportunity never arose. I stared at them, my heart aching with the pain I had never known before. These were my parents, the people who were supposed to love and protect me. And they had betrayed me in the most profound way imaginable. I turned and walked away, tears streaming down my face. I couldn't stay there any longer. I needed to get away from them, from their lies and their selfishness. I drove back to my apartment, packed a bag, and waited for Antonio to call. When he did, he sounded furious. "I've cut them off, Alexandra," he said, his voice trembling with rage. "Every penny. Not another dime will they get from me." "Thank you, Grandpa," I said, my voice choked with emotion. "And that's not all," he continued. "I want you to come live with me, Alexandra. Come to Italy. Start a new life. I'll take care of you."
"You deserve it." I hesitated for a moment, leaving everything behind. Starting over in a new country was a daunting prospect. But the thought of staying here, of continuing to live in the shadow of my parents' betrayal, was even more unbearable. "Yes, Grandpa," I said, "I'll come." Within a week, I had sold my belongings, quit my job, and booked a one-way ticket to Italy. Antonio met me at the airport with open arms, his eyes filled with a mixture of relief and sorrow. He took me to his villa in Tuscany, a sprawling estate surrounded by vineyards and olive groves. It was a world away from the cramped apartment I had been living in, from the constant pressure and disappointment that had defined my life. Antonio was determined to make up for the years of neglect. He showered me with affection, introduced me to his friends, and helped me find a job at a local marketing firm.
He even insisted on giving me a car from his collection. A sleek, silver sports car that made me feel like a completely different person. Life in Italy was everything I had ever dreamed of. I was surrounded by beauty, by warmth, by love. I thrived in my new job, made new friends, and finally felt like I was living a life that was truly my own. Meanwhile, back in the States, my parents and Ethan were facing the consequences of their actions. Antonio had cut them off completely, leaving them scrambling to make ends meet. They were forced to sell their house, downsize their lifestyle, and for the first time in their lives, experience the sting of financial hardship. Ethan, stripped of his grandfather's financial support, was forced to get a job. My father struggled to keep his job at the hardware store, and my mother went into depression. One day, I received a phone call from my mother.
Her voice was weak and desperate. "Alexandra, please," she begged. "We need your help. We're going to be evicted. We have nowhere to go." I hesitated. A part of me wanted to help them, to ease their suffering. But another part of me, the part that remembered the years of neglect and betrayal, knew that I couldn't. "I'm sorry, Mom," I said, my voice cold and detached. "I can't help you." "But Alexandra," she wailed, "we're your parents." "You can't just abandon us. You abandoned me a long time ago," I said. "Remember the car? Remember the money? You made your choices. Now you have to live with them." I hung up the phone, my hands shaking. I knew I had done the right thing, but it didn't make it any easier. A few weeks later, I received another phone call, this time from Ethan. He was even more desperate than my mother. "Alexandra, please," he pleaded. "We're living in a motel. We have no food, no money. Grandpa Antonio won't answer our calls. You're our only hope." "I'm sorry, Ethan," I said, my voice hardening. "I can't help you. You always had everything you wanted. You never had to struggle, never had to worry. Now it's your turn to experience what it's like to be on your own." I hung up the phone, feeling a pang of guilt but also a sense of satisfaction. They had finally gotten what they deserved. I never heard from my parents or Ethan again. I don't know what happened to them, where they ended up. I only know that they faced eviction and a much more difficult life than they had ever known before. As for me, I continued to thrive in my new environment. I found success in my career, made lasting friendships, and finally felt like I belonged. I learned to forgive myself for the anger and resentment I had carried for so long. I realized that I couldn't change the past, but I could control my future. I built a new life for myself, a life filled with love, joy, and purpose. And I never looked back. Some people break families apart. Others, like my grandfather Antonio, help you rebuild them from the ashes, even if it means leaving some people behind. If you liked this story, please subscribe to the channel for more such stories.